The final conference of the project My Ideal City took place in Venice on the 12th and 13th of May. The event brought together new technologies and citizens' participation in the construction of knowledge concerning the challenges proposed by My Ideal City project. Following the experiences carried by Museo Tridentino di Scienze Naturali with real-time 3D technologies applied to museum needs, the basic idea of the project was to merge participatory design with the virtual and digital world in order to visualize future and ideal urban spaces.
The My Ideal City project wanted to assess if the liquid nature of this kind of technology could met the participatory processes in the rethinking and rebuilding of future ideal cities as imagined by their own citizens.
My Ideal City was created in 2009 as an European project coordinated by Museo Tridentino in Trento, Istituto Universitario di Architettura di Venezia, and 3 other science museums were involved: Bloomfield in Jerusalem, Ciência Viva in Lisbon, and Experimentarium in Copenhagen. Science museums, as key public places for knowledge sharing, played a very important role on the development of this project.
Museums are trying to find new ways to engage with the citizens, and so that added another layer, not only technology, but technology and participation. And the city was the excuse.
The project sets up 3 major challenges: a significant participatory process, an interactive real-time 3D environment, and through the results of these 2 challenges, a research on the use of participatory digital technologies in cultural construction and communication. Through the participatory process that involved social research with inputs of 272 citizens from the 4 selected cities, with focus groups, interviews and workshops, participants were invited to get involved in the construction of an ideal city within the city where they live.
We involved a lot of migrants, for example, in Trento. In Jerusalem they involved the different religious communities, also extremely Orthodox Jewish, Muslim. And in Trento we involved a group of lesbian women. And so we were trying to show that through participation you can bring different point of views.
As a technological product of the social research involved in the participatory process, the interactive real-time 3-dimensional environments created for each city were an important part of the project. They explored the possibilities of engaging audiences and public dimensions of science in innovative ways, bringing to the core of participation the ability to build virtual contents of imagined spaces. This led to the exhibition of a 3-dimensional environment of the renewed ideal versions of the cities that hosted each museum involved in the project.
I think we had the first step, but there's much work to do, I think. I'm not an expert, but looking at the experience, I think that there are large potential to develop better that instrument with this aim, which is completely different from the virtual world of Second Life you can use to have a second life with the avatar. I think for architecture and also for landscape and urban design, it's very important to use the possibility of the artistic thought
a video competition open to young artists and students of all Europe and Israel, was also organized to develop the interpretation of the future townscape of the four cities of Trento, Copenhagen, Jerusalem and Lisbon. Conference participants came from different backgrounds, from architecture to sociology, filmmaking or painting.
The world of art, the world of painting in particular, historically has been this discipline which has been able to reach out both to architecture, to everything dealing with real space, and all of the world of illusion and the world of the imagination. And so, it's more recent that art has kind of taken a very exclusive realm. But historically, it's always been part of everything, part of architecture and design, and now obviously part of all the interactive. Important to me is to see the definitions that we've relied on, that we've used to separate and segregate the different disciplines, break down. So that we start to think about museums differently, and we start even to think about the structure of universities differently.
The first day of the conference was concerned with the possible future developments of My Ideal City experimental research. Following strands of discussion concerning the space of flows or the liquefaction of the urban structure, one of the debates focused on the importance of the complementary relation between the physical and virtual space for the construction of the public.
We have to have physical anchors, places where people belonging to that social network want to go. So we are doing that kind of a project, which I think will be very common in the future. You have the virtual and the physical world. In the physical world, you have to do something exciting, something that takes you out of the home. And in the end of the day, people like to be together. So, for instance, in that area of the audience entertainment, we are being very successful. People like to play games by the thousands, and I think we can transfer those games to more serious stuff, like public participation or any kind of democratic meeting. You can involve people. We are also working on that technology, for instance, in teaching. I think it's up to the society to defend the public goods, both in the virtual and in the physical world.
The second day was dedicated to developing three issues: the ideal city and the participatory process, the image of the city in the digital world, and towards a sustainable city. The lecture by Venice from MVRDV was about the European City of Tomorrow scenarios. Venice has been particularly interested in the power of argumentation for spatial practices as a very useful tool to communicate and progress spatial practices related disciplines.
Well, argumentation is clearly about innovation. So how to achieve, say, a better world, a better city, a better planet. And what is better? To give meaning to the word better. And then argumentation is needed because it's not only like a very personal argument that is then which is partly helping, but ultimately for bigger agendas you need more input from a wider audience, from more specialists, from politicians to technicians, so by having a language, say the argumentative language, and then that becomes argumentative, and I think then you can find immediately a process where people start to share the same goals and translate it to their own work.
Conclusions were diverse and exhibited the complexity of the issues at hand. However complex, they seemed to grasp the experimental tone of the conference and assumed the personality, individuality and the beliefs of those that felt passionate about the themes discussed.
I'm convinced we we must involve more young people, children, and because personally I'm too old to work on this one, on this type also of things and technology, but it's not simply for me. It's a problem that the mentality and the capability of the younger persons and the children in particular in this way is completely new, completely different.